Hello everyone. Welcome to the Lightning Ball channel. If you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please do so and activate the notification bell. Your support fuels my continued efforts. Starting from this episode, we will begin reviewing Volume 20 of TenSura. Let's first take a look at the current state of the Tenma Great War. Overall, the Demon Lord faction has achieved a temporary advantage in the first phase. Firstly, Rimuru completely annihilated the enemy's supreme leader Michael at the Heaven Tower. Simultaneously, Masayuki, using his overpowered ultimate skill, summoned the strongest hero, Rudra, and defeated Feldway and Ingracia. Additionally, with Rimuru's help, Leon also successfully broke free from control of Lord of Justice and returned to the Demon Lord faction. However, the battle on Nalim's front is still ongoing. Degrua was defeated by Fen and subsequently betrayed the Demon Lords, with his giant army likely to invade Luminous territory, making the situation grim. As we analyzed before, Feldway is known for his caution. He is powerful but careful. Feldway had never faced defeat before, and losing to a human he always despised has undoubtedly been a significant psychological blow. This defeat will drive Feldway to act even more recklessly. In this episode, we will witness Feldway's complete awakening as he showcases his ultimate power, stepping in to lead the Angel faction in place of Michael. Let's get started. After being beaten by Rudra and fleeing in disgrace, Feldway, with the help of Mai Furuki, returned to their stronghold, the Star Palace. Since his creation, Feldway had rarely experienced failure. Losing to Rudra was a tremendous humiliation, and it showed. Feldway, not even taking the time to change his blood-soaked clothes, began to curse furiously, shouting from the depths of his anger, mocking Rudra for not deserving the title of hero since he couldn't even protect Veldanavasama. Feldway had anticipated Rudra's strength but never expected that Rudra could break the strongest defense, Castle Guard. It's worth noting that the Rudra summoned by Masayuki was even more powerful than the real Rudra, as the real Rudra had never possessed both the Lord of Justice and the Lord of Oath ultimate skills simultaneously. From a character perspective, Feldway hated anything unexpected in situations beyond his control, so the recent unforeseen events had left him seething with uncontrollable rage. Successfully retreating, however, was a small consolation for Feldway, convincing himself that this did not equate to a failure. Feldway even began to use this self-deception to calm himself and forcibly return to his usual state of mind. Feldway decided to momentarily forget his defeat by Rudra and focus instead on the status of his other comrades. This decision led to even greater shock and anxiety because his thought communication to Michael had gone unanswered. Feldway felt a sense of unease, with a foreboding feeling enveloping him. Theoretically, Michael should not have been defeated by that slime, so why was there no response? More crucially, Michael and Feldway shared a unified authority, and their communication should remain uninterrupted even across different dimensions. If there was no response, it could only indicate a very critical situation. But even in a life-threatening scenario, Michael had parallel existence, allowing him to revive if one body was destroyed. Feldway forced himself to stay calm, but he couldn't suppress his growing panic and restless thoughts. The time stop had been lifted, and by Feldway's calculations, the battle should have concluded. According to their initial assessment, Rimuru was supposedly unaware of the concept of the time stopping. This meant that once they lured Rimuru to Heaven Tower using Leon, their plot should have succeeded. But as if to confirm his worst fears, Feldway received Michael's final thought communication. It was a message sent with the last of Michael's strength, expressing his fulfilled wish and the regret of leaving Feldway behind as Michael faced the end alone. Feldway could sense the power of Lord of Justice within himself, but devoid of Michael's consciousness, which confirmed that Michael had truly died. Feldway fell into complete panic. That was the incredibly powerful Michael-sama, who also possessed parallel existence. As long as Feldway was alive, there was no reason Michael wouldn't revive. Michael could be considered Feldway's first friend. Unlike Celerio and Fen, Michael shared Feldway's goals and was someone he could genuinely communicate with. To protect his friend Michael, Feldway had devised 10 even 20 layers of strategies to ensure his safety. Feldway couldn't comprehend how, under such circumstances, Michael could still be eliminated. Moreover, the Lord of Justice hadn't disappeared. Feldway could sense the signs of Manas's revival. It could respond to his call, but there was just no self-awareness within it. It was merely a form that completely harnessed the power of the Lord of Justice, but it wasn't his friend Michael. This meant that Feldway had fully inherited Michael's power but lacked Michael's personal consciousness. Here, I personally think the book's writing contradicts its earlier descriptions. Manas itself is the highest form of a skill's self-awareness. Without Michael's consciousness, theoretically, Manas shouldn't exist. A plausible explanation could be that the author wanted Feldway to inherit Michael's full power but didn't thoroughly consider a more refined definition of Manas. Returning to Feldway, he felt confused and at a loss, as everything had deviated from his expectations. Facing the death of his friend, Feldway displayed his weakness for the first time. He recalled Michael's last words, pondering what they implied. Why did Michael say his wish had been fulfilled? Feldway couldn't understand, but at least it indicated Michael hadn't died in agony. No matter what, from the literal meaning, Michael had realized the purpose of his life before his death. Thinking of this, Feldway felt somewhat relieved. However, a wave of helpless jealousy surged in his heart. Michael was too cunning. He had found fulfillment, leaving Feldway behind to face everything alone. Feldway was lonely. As the commander of the 7 Angels of Origin, he bore all the responsibilities, never considering seeking advice from anyone else, instead making all decisions himself. Veldanava's death left Feldway without a way to escape this role. To prevent others from feeling uneasy, Feldway constantly led the charge on the front lines. The problem was that Feldway didn't consider his comrades' feelings, making all decisions unilaterally. This inevitably led to dissatisfaction among his comrades, resulting in a fragmented team. For Feldway, who was unaware of this, it was difficult to determine if it was fortunate or unfortunate. As mentioned before, Feldway and Fenn could be considered friends, though they chatted about various things. Feldway didn't trust Fenn enough to reveal his weaknesses. In the end, in this vast world, there was no one who could truly understand and comfort Feldway's heart. Then Michael appeared. They were not only companions with the same ideals but also friends who understood each other. Michael's arrival brought Feldway an unprecedented joy. Unconsciously, Michael had become as important to Feldway as Veldanava-sama. However, reality was cruel. The close friend he had finally gained left him alone, making Feldway feel lost. This was the first time in such a long time that Feldway felt so helpless. But at that moment, Vega's voice interrupted Feldway's thoughts. Vega was a blunt person, completely oblivious to subtleties. He directly asked Feldway about the next plan, seeking his upcoming task. Feldway looked at Vega with disdain and anger, telling him to shut up and mentioning that Michael-sama's communication had been cut off, leaving no time to deal with Vega. However, Vega completely ignored Feldway's words. Thinking about Michael's usual indifferent and arrogant demeanor, Vega remarked that Michael always acted superior, but it was disgraceful that he actually lost in a real fight. Hearing Vega's unrestrained mockery of Michael, Feldway erupted in fury, releasing his overwhelming aura. The difference in power between Feldway and Vega was immense, and feeling this immense power, Vega did not react as he usually would by backing down. Instead, Vega argued that it wasn't his fault. Michael was weak, and this world operated on the principle of the strong preying on the weak. The dead had no justice. Although these words undoubtedly infuriated Feldway further, they were Vega's true thoughts and his guiding principle, which, from a certain perspective, held some truth. However, regardless of whether Vega's words were correct, Feldway could not tolerate anyone speaking ill of Michael. Feldway decided to use force to erase Vega and his blasphemous words. But this time, Vega stood his ground and cleverly cited the examples of Orcalia and Arios, stating that when he absorbed and killed these two, Feldway showed no emotion, even though they were comrades. Vega's argument was valid. Even when one of the 3 mystic admirals, Cornu, got eliminated, Feldway did not feel any sadness. His reaction was more about the displeasure of the failed operation and the need to strategize the next move. For those who fought alongside him for tens of thousands of years, Feldway's attitude was indifferent. So for those like Arios and Orcalia, who were treated as mere pawns, Feldway's reaction was even more detached. When they died, Feldway's thoughts were purely pragmatic. As long as Vega became stronger, their lives were not wasted. This lack of emotion was why he did not reprimand Vega. Vega had clearly seen through Feldway's inner turmoil, but Feldway's aura grew even more intense to hide his own unease. Feldway insisted that Vega understood nothing. Michael and he shared a noble goal worth any sacrifice. Under such overwhelming pressure, Vega couldn't move, but he felt a deep anger. To Vega, the world was inherently cruel. His former boss, Yuki, had challenged the injustices of the world, using his power to persevere, even pretending to be controlled by Michael. However, in our episode 85, facing Jahil's absolute power, Yuki couldn't resist and had to accept his fate of being destroyed. To Vega, Yuki was extremely dangerous, so he instinctively understood that Yuki was not truly controlled. Yet Yuki was easily defeated, a fact that made even someone like Vega feel the fickleness of life. Since the law of the jungle was the unchanging truth, then strength was justice. As long as he had strength, no matter how vile or unforgivable he was, if he won, he would be righteous. Therefore, in Vega's eyes, the defeated Michael was worthless, and he couldn't comprehend why Feldway, who was far stronger than Vega, would lament over something so insignificant. Vega expressed that Feldway was powerful, stronger than Jahil, Michael, and Velzard, so undoubtedly, the one with strength, Feldway, was his boss. Hearing Vega's words, Feldway couldn't help but feel that this might be Vega's way of comforting him, slightly easing the sorrow of losing his friend Michael. As Diablo mentioned, Feldway inherently possessed strength comparable to a true dragon. Even though Michael was dead, perhaps out of concern for his friend, Michael had entrusted all his power to Feldway in his final moments. Thus, Feldway couldn't betray Michael's intentions. Although Feldway did not intentionally and maliciously seize Michael's power, the result was similar to Vega's act of devouring Arios and Orcalia. Feldway felt a slight kinship with Vega and decided from that moment on to become the supreme leader. He swore to protect this throne until Veldanava-sama was revived. Feldway had always willingly followed Michael, and to avoid drawing attention, he had sealed his true form. However, with Michael gone, there was no longer any need to hold back his full power. To fully utilize the power Michael left him, it was time for Feldway to retrieve his true body, hidden in the other world, and unleash everything. Feldway possessed the true form granted by Veldanava, making him one of Veldanava's original creations. Feldway's true appearance was very similar to that of his creator Veldanava. While Veldanava had jet black hair that seemed to hold the brilliance of countless stars, resembling the rebirth of the world, Feldway's hair was a radiant silver, representing dazzling light. His eyes were bright and clear, shining like deep blue stars. Instead of describing him as beautiful or pretty, it would be more fitting to call him sacred and inviolable. Those eyes, glimmering like azure stars, held a certain sternness and a resolute, steely determination. It wasn't mere beauty, it was an aura of sanctity. Opposite to that beauty was Feldway's overwhelming presence. All the skills that Michael possessed were now Feldway's. Apart from Lord of Wisdom, Lord of Oath, and Lord of Hope, the other four angelic ultimate skills of the seven virtues and their related abilities, including various ultimate enchantments, were still effective after being converted into infants. Moreover, the dragon factors of the Scorched Dragon and Frost Dragon had also become part of Feldway's very being. In terms of combat power, Feldway now possessed strength surpassing his former self. Seeing such a powerful entity before him, Vega trembled and swallowed repeatedly, filled with fear. Thus, although Michael was successfully defeated by Rimuru, an even more powerful Feldway emerged. Feldway, surprisingly, expressed gratitude towards Vega for making him realize his potential. Vega, blushing, smiled shyly before reverting to his arrogant demeanor, declaring that he would always keep an eye on Feldway and wouldn't hesitate to devour him if he found a weakness. Feldway wasn't angered by this. Instead, he smiled with a chilling aura that made him seem like a completely different person from before. Alright, that's all for this video. If anyone had doubts about whether Feldway was qualified to be the strongest existence on the angel side in the Tenma Great War, it's clear now that Feldway fully deserves this title. Feldway's true strength, which rivals that of the true dragons, combined with all of Michael's powers, makes him formidable. Although the author didn't specify, it's evident that Feldway's existence points could match Rimuru's true dragon release state. However, existence points alone don't determine strength. A clear example is how Rimuru, in his normal state, overwhelmingly defeated the powerful Michael. Given that Feldway becomes the strongest adversary in Volume 20, following the author's usual pattern, Feldway is unlikely to be the final boss. I personally believe that Ivaraj has a higher possibility of taking that role. From the next episode, we will shift our focus to Milim's side of the battle. Similar to the battle in Ingracia's royal capital, this is a full-scale war with numerous skirmishes. The MVP of this battle is clearly Carrera, so I will try to speed up the review of other battles, focusing mainly on Carrera and Milim. The upcoming episodes will be very exciting. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Your support is greatly appreciated. See you in the next one.